Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. How is everyone feeling after that very watery Neptune North Node conjunction last week? It's been such an interesting experience, really being in the depths of these Piscean waters with the North Node and Neptune and Saturn at the late degrees of Pisces. And yeah, it's just been really revealing. I think it's been nice to kind of get a glimpse into what's beyond the veil. I was talking to a friend about this last week, just feeling that we've been in this process of really sitting with and being with the unknown. And, that will continue as we navigate this North Node in Pisces journey over the next 18 months. But I think we're finally starting to get some glimpses into what the new timeline really looks like and what we can how we can sort of move beyond this very tight parameter that we've been within. It's felt like we've been having to take these big leaps of faith and just, putting one foot in front of the other in so many ways. And now it just feels like we're getting to sense a little bit what the next timeline will look like, and maybe even taking some steps or planning some things. And so, although we're still in this Neptune North Node conjunction for really another week, it's just this week is going to be pretty electric. So we talked about the new moon in Aquarius 2 episodes ago and how it was really giving us this gateway into the age of Aquarius, this beginning point for this journey of Pluto in Aquarius over the next 20 years. And it was in many ways kind of like a spark or a creation point, a beginning point for this journey. And this full moon in Leo that we have this week is similar. It's taking it from this wide angle perspective that Aquarius oftentimes takes, this more mental perspective, this snapshot, and bringing it into our own personal layers, our connection to self, and the role that we play in this greater shift. There's so much happening in the world right now, and there's so much upheaval and turmoil and fear and a lot of things changing and shifting in ways that feels extremely uncomfortable for many of us. And so, once again, this medicine of surrender, of releasing to what we're gripping to, of looking at where we're fixed, will be the medicine of this week. We use such a small portion of our brains, and sometimes I think that we get stuck in this space of believing that the way things have been, or that the way things are, is the best option. We forget that there's a whole field of potential and possibility outside of what we're experiencing right now. We forget that by staying stagnant, even if it's in a space that we feel like is working or that feels really good or that feels quote unquote safe for us, when we remain in that space of smallness or stagnation, we really box ourselves in and we cut ourselves off from the possibilities and potentials that are available to us, that are swirling around all the time. Instead, we're staring down and we're looking at our feet. We're looking at where we've been. We're looking at how we can maintain this space, how we can maintain this level of safety, this level of familiarity. And it's so important to look up. Even if something is changing right now in a way that is uncomfortable for you, even if it's super unfamiliar, or if it's pushing your buttons of discomfort, or if it's making you feel unsafe, it's important to note that there might be a better way that's going to emerge from this period of dismantling and destruction. I think the medicine of this week and the medicine of this full moon, which I'll talk about, is the medicine that comes from getting shaken up. When we go through a period of rapid transformation and growth, our nervous system naturally responds to that as a threat. That's just how we're wired. That's how our physiology has been for thousands of years. But now, in this wildly transformative portal, we are being asked to upgrade those systems. We're being asked to tend to our nervous systems, tend to the parts of us that grip to the familiar, and instead lean into that transformation. And what's interesting is we kind of have two sides of one coin right now. And we're all part of the same fabric and the same makeup, and the contrast makes us feel separate, but we really are not. But what both sides of the coin are looking for are safety. And then we have people in the middle that are just ready for change. So what we want to do is start to mobilize the parts of us that feel afraid of change. And knowing that even though this might be extremely uncomfortable, what we're going through, there is possibility and potential in each phase of life. So maybe something that's being dismantled or destroyed right now needs an upgrade. Maybe it's happening so that we can look at it. We can look under the hood and say, oh, this actually wasn't serving in the highest way. There's a potential for this to be better. Maybe it's shaking people up enough that we start to move out of our freeze and into a space of mobilization so that we can change what we need to. But either way, the work always starts at the center point of our beings. It starts where we hold fear, where we hold the past. And that space holds the keys for our future expansion and transformation. So when I sat down to record this episode, I got the very clear message that I need to communicate how important it is to embrace change right now. That we are not meant to remain stagnant. It's not why we come to Earth. I'm sorry to say that is not why we're here. Each and every one of us is here to change and transform, to evolve and grow. Some people do it in a much smaller way. Some people don't do it at all because they resist it so much. But if you're listening to this podcast, I have a feeling you're here to evolve. So let's lean in. Let's return to the practices that we know are supportive in processing the fear and finding our footing and finding our center, even through portals of big change. Let's look at our own systems, our internal systems, our belief systems, our patterns held within our nervous and immune systems, our eating systems, our intake systems. What are we absorbing? What are we consuming? Is it serving or is it perpetuating that fear loop? Are we doing something every single day just because it's what we've always done? Now is the time to change that. Uranus is super active in the sky. It's the planet of transformation and change, and it's going to bring anxiety into our systems if we aren't willing to listen. So, we start this week with a powerful Mercury cazimi in Aquarius. Aquarius is already a very mental sign. So with a Mercury cazimi, where Mercury and the sun are meeting in the sky from our perspective on Earth, it's a point of revelation, of clarity, of psychic downloads and information coming in. Mercury is the the messenger of the gods. So it brings us messages and insight, things that we need to know. When it's hyperactive, it's sending too much or it's looping through something. So it's just a good time to notice what's happening in your mental space, specifically tied to Aquarian themes of authenticity, individuation, individuality, groups, collective themes. It will reveal patterns within our communication systems. Aquarius is already a mental sign. It rules the mind. It's fixed air. So this is going to reveal our belief systems. Where are we fixed within a belief? I think it's beautiful to have beliefs. I think it's beautiful to have opinions. But with this space of transformation that we find ourselves within, pigeonholing ourselves into a box is not supportive. So it's important to always just question, to kind of look at, like, does this still align with me? Does this belief system still align with me? Do the people that are within this belief system or connected to this belief system still align with me? That same day, on the 9th, we have Mars retrograde trine Saturn in Pisces. So we're getting some supportive energy to kind of look at all of the medicine that Mars retrograde has been delivering to us, connected to our safety, home, belonging, emotional attunement, our emotional center, mothering, the mother wound and remothering, our anger, our drive, our passions, suppression, suppressed emotions. Saturn's going to try to help us break free from some of that or to create systems that are supportive. And then starting on the 10th, we start to receive this pressure from Uranus. Uranus starts to square Mercury and the Sun on February 10th and 11th. And then we head into our full moon in Leo on the 12th. And that is forming a T-square with Uranus. So we have this Mercury, Moon, Sun, Uranus dance happening this week. And I'll talk more about that because it's very significant and it's very important and it's pushy and liberating and exciting and uncomfortable all at the same time. We also have Chiron playing into this moon as well. Chiron, the wounded healer, the asteroid, forming a trine with this full moon and also squaring Mars retrograde right now. So there's a lot of core material coming to the surface. I always like to add a little personal note because I feel like sometimes I get so in the material that I have people, asking that I kind of share some of my personal reflections too. And while this isn't a personal story podcast, it's definitely, I know for myself, at least when I hear from people and their experiences, sometimes it pings something within me that is revealing or helpful or supportive or connective. So I've been noticing so much psychic information coming in. I was talking to a friend last night and just realizing that so much of my unconscious material that I've been, sitting with and kind of being with for a while now is very clear at the moment. I think some of this is due to being in my personal Chiron square. And then, of course, we have Mars retrograde in that mix as well. And so it's helpful. But the North Node and Neptune and Pisces too, just bringing some of this information through. And that's why I love really deepening into astrology, because it shows us these little points where we're receiving activations, or these points where there are openings within our consciousness where we can understand something in a deeper way, or where we feel more pressure. And so for myself, I'm noticing my core wounds really up, and I'm seeing actually, which is really fascinating and fun, so clearly where they're present within the body and the physical patterns that surface when a wound is activated. So I have a pattern in my neck that's connected to my surgeries as a kid. The core wounding is around emotional attunement and support. And so knowing that that gets active or activated in a certain part of the body, I can work with it in real time to attune to that part and to hopefully release some of that patterning. And seeing this week as sort of a breakthrough, especially from our core wounding around identity, belonging, power. It's a really powerful portal to do some deep work. And we all know we're preparing for this summer, essentially, and 2026. So this summer we get a glimpse into what the 2026, 2027, 2028 timeline looks like. So it's a perfect time to do this type of work, to kind of be very, very present with what's surfacing and what's coming up. And I have a feeling many of us have a lot of material. I'm seeing that in my sessions with my clients. I'm seeing it in conversations with friends and colleagues. And so there's quite a bit up and there's quite a bit that's available to be worked with. So just know that that's the energetic climate. Just like the weather, if we're getting a snowstorm or if we're getting a rainstorm, we need to prepare for that, or we need to know how to adjust our lives based upon it. Similarly, with an astrological climate, how can we work with it? How can we lean in? How can we stay connected to ourselves through these portals of change and lean into the transformation? So the big spotlight of this week is the full moon in Leo. It's on February 12th at 24 degrees of Leo. It's happening at 5:53 a.m. Pacific. And this is a big, bright full moon. This moon is ruled by the sun, as the sun rules Leo. And we know that a full moon occurs when the sun and moon are opposite one another. So it activates an axis. This is the axis of Leo and Aquarius. And so from our perspective on Earth, it looks like the sun and moon are opposite one another exactly. So what happens is the sun fully illuminates the moon. That's why it appears to be full. We're at the climax or the top of our lunar cycle. So we've reached a culmination point. Our inner landscape, our emotional body, our inner world is fully illuminated and highlighted. So full moons really allow us to peek or peer into our inner landscape in a deeper way. It's like turning the light on in the basement. There are heightened emotions because our inner landscape is illuminated. So much is revealed, and often it's what we cannot see normally. So it's a time when our subconscious is revealed, the veil thins. We can see what's beneath the surface, what's subterranean more easily. Now, this is also confronting because we're being asked to look at what's there, but also do something with it. So it's confronting, but liberating because we don't know what we don't know. So if we don't know what's down there, we can't do anything with it. We can't work with it. But if we can see it, we're able to work with it. We're able to clear or tend to or attune to, release, whatever it is. So the Leo-Aquarius axis is highlighted this week, this month really. It's all about individuality, self-expression, individuation, and belonging, courage, identity, and the heart versus the mind. And Leo is ruled by the sun, which is the ego. Leo is all about developing a healthy relationship with our ego, which is our embodiment of our human self in this life. It's our humanness. It's how we move through this physical plane. It's how we identify who we are. It's kind of like our suit, our human suit. Leo is about honoring our true self and our needs, our desires, our self-expression, and our self-actualization. That's so much of what Leo represents, is self-actualization. working positively with the ego to actualize ourselves in this life. It's also connected to the heart, so heart work, moving from the heart, deciding from the heart, loving from the heart. It highlights our passions. Leo shows us who we are in the greater fabric of humanity. Aquarius really rules the wider angle, the wider perspective. It rules the collective field and group consciousness. Leo is the individual heart that beats in all of our individual places within this great web. Leo represents personal expression and inner radiance, allowing our inner self, our true self, to radiate out and magnetize what's meant for us. It's about self-confidence and self-empowerment and all of our own individual unique gifts that we bring that play a part in this greater, like I said, fabric or web of humanity. It's connected to the inner child. It's connected to the fifth house in astrology, which is the inner child, passion, creativity, courage. It encourages us to shine bright, to shine from our inner luminosity, our true self at our core. It also represents heart-centered leadership, which we need so desperately in these times. And like I said, Aquarius is more about the collective field. And so it shows us as it works with Leo, because they are opposites, but they're also very compatible as well. They work together. And so it shows us what our each unique gift is, what our medicine is. And it calls for us to cultivate that so that we can assist in this great shift. This axis really explores how our own individual light serves the greater collective awakening that we're in. It's really the axis of the individual Leo and the group Aquarius, knowing that we each need to have our own individual life force, ego, and identity to participate in and to assist the greater whole, the greater group. So this full moon is really going to show us where we perhaps hide any wounding around individuality, self-expression, authenticity, personal radiance, joy, play, creativity, purpose, and our connection to our inner fire and flame, our passion, our drive, our unconditional love. Any of the heart walls that keep us blocked from our true self. And I've talked about heart walls before. It's something that occurs. It's a calcification that occurs when we experience too much grief or too much betrayal at an earlier point, whether it be a past life or in our inner child space, our childhood. And this calcification of the heart occurs because it's trying to protect us from feeling too much, from experiencing that again. So a heart wall occurs when we have a calcification or a trauma that is too much to process. So our heart closes, but what it does is it not only closes to others, it also closes to us. It closes to ourselves. So we don't have access to our true self, our needs, desires, our own inner love. So this moon will highlight where we hold heart walls. Mars retrograde in Cancer is also revealing that. So we can kind of see how these planetary alignments interact and help one another to create a specific climate for something. It will also reveal where we lean too much on our intellect, our mental constructs, our mental programs and patterns. The mind is a tool. It helps us process and sort and organize information, but when we let it lead, we fall into traps. It's not meant to lead. The heart is meant to lead. So it's going to reveal where we lead with the mind and not the heart. and where there's opportunity to deepen into our heart work. And this moon is super helpful as we all feel drawn to understand our place in this great shift. What role or part do we play? What is our identity? Who are we, and how can we embody our fullest expression, which holds our deepest medicine, to play a part? With so much of this Aquarian energy this month and the new moon in Aquarius, this moon really helps illuminate our part, our own individual place within this great web. And we do this through activating the heart space. What is your heart asking for? What is held within the wisdom of your heart? Can you break the walls that protect you from that wisdom to embody further the medicine that's held there? This moon is highlighting the fact that we are fragments or parts of a greater whole. And when we embody our truest self, we find our perfect place within the web. I think so often some of our suffering comes from a lack of belonging, a lack of place. So yes, we are individual beings, but we are part of a greater collective fabric. We need our individuality, our authenticity, our unique medicine to click in order for this fabric to take shape, to take form, and in order for the whole system to work. This is so much of what I'll talk about in my North and South Node course that's being finished up and ready for release in the next few weeks. And I think one of the greatest lessons of Leo, and something this moon will reveal to us, is that when we understand ourselves in a deeper way, we're able to take that understanding and that depth to all of our relationships and to our lives. We can only meet someone as deep as we've met ourselves. So we can only empathize with someone as deeply as we've empathized with ourselves. The work always begins within, at the center of our own heart space. And so it's important to remember this as we navigate this week. And I mentioned before that this is not just a full moon, but it's also a full moon that's participating in a T-square, which occurs when we have 3 or more planets that are squaring and opposing one another. So we have this opposition between the sun and Mercury and the moon, because the sun and Mercury are conjunct. They have their cazimi this week, so they're still in a conjunction when we have the full moon on the 12th. And that is opposing the full moon. Then we also have the full moon squaring Uranus as the sun and Mercury square Uranus. So it's forming this T-square. And T-squares are pushy. I know many people who have T-squares in their natal charts, and they experience that friction or that pushiness or that challenge in their life to change something, to complete something. They're pushing us to move out of a pattern, out of a fixed program, especially when it's a fixed T-square, which this is. It's happening in the fixed signs, so it's happening in Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus. So where are we stuck? This T-square will force us to shift something, especially with Uranus at play. Uranus needs us to change something when it's interacting with a part of our lives. And so we always look at the opposite side of the T-square, that point for release. It is Scorpio. So at 23 degrees of Scorpio, this is the release point. This is the point where we are meant to find the medicine for this T-square configuration. Scorpio is personal transformation, alchemy, going deep into the subconscious, deep into our inner layers. It's looking at our attachment to things. This full moon within this greater T-square is really asking for breakthroughs, big transformations. This is an awakening week. I would not be surprised if some revelations come through, awakenings, things you were maybe thinking about or feeling into but weren't fully aware of, downloads, upgrades, drop-ins. This is a big, like I said, breakthrough week. So anyone who has late degrees, fixed signs will feel this configuration the most. If you have late degree Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, or Leo, you're going to feel this the most because you're going to feel this T-square naturally, more intensely in your chart. Uranus is the planet of change, liberation, revolution, renovation. It's futuristic. It wants us to evolve out of something, but it's quite pushy. It's fast. It's unexpected. With Uranus in Taurus, squaring both the Sun and Mercury, and also the Moon, it's creating tension. It really wants us to break free or break through something. Wherever we're stuck, Taurus can be stuck. It's fixed earth. So where do we hold ourselves back because we're afraid of moving into the unknown? Into that scorpionic space of death and rebirth, alchemy. Where do we hold fears around money or material, anything on the material plane, home, safety? Uranus at the apex point of this T-square is bringing sudden breakthroughs or where we feel stuck, asking for us to really revolutionize our value systems, even getting out of old comfort zones that might have been supportive in the past, but are no longer supportive. It can bring unexpected shifts in resources. Uranus and Taurus has been reworking our relationship with resources and our values, and also showing us where we're limiting ourselves. I talked about that in the beginning of the episode. This Uranus interaction with this full moon is going to really push us out of that space of limitation. It's gonna ask us to bump up against our walls of comfort and familiarity a little bit. And T-squares create momentum for change. So they're super helpful. They're a bit pushy, but especially with Uranus in the mix, we're getting ready to enter into the eclipse portal as well. So I see this full moon really as a guide book or a roadmap on how to navigate the rest of this year, especially from March to August. We're going to have to get comfortable with the things that have made us uncomfortable in the past. We're going to have to lean into change. We are going to have to release control. We think about the North and South node in mutable Virgo and Pisces. Releasing control, leaning into change. The pressure points that we feel this week are where we really need liberation. And then the resistance that we have to those changes really shows us where our breakthrough is possible. So use this as medicine. Use this as material to see, where am I holding resistance? What am I gripping to? How can I let go a little bit? How can I sort of just close my eyes, deepen into trust, North Node in Pisces, and jump? I've said this so many times on this podcast, and sometimes I feel like I'm a broken record, but it really is so often just kind of returning to the same medicine as everything shifts around us. But I really believe that most of our suffering comes from our gripping, trying to control or keep things a certain way. And when we release that resistance, we can experience the joy that we block ourselves from when we're working so hard to control or tighten or grip to what has been. Liberation is like salve for the soul. So this week is big. Lots of revelations, clarity also, which can be so helpful in where we're gripping, what we're stuck to, the patterns that we're holding ourselves within. And we're always given a choice. We're given many choices in the moment, but we can choose to go back into that same loop, to choose again the same response. Or we can choose to do something differently. I'm noticing that I have these sort of default responses, we all do, to certain circumstances and situations. I've been taking a lot of space to just pause and notice the response and then choose differently. And then do the work around it so I can attune to that part that feels like it needs to go into that response. So then it changes over time. But we always have a choice, especially when the subconscious is so open and exposed like it is right now. But we need to be sober and clear in all of the ways in order to notice what's happening. I'm all for, taking a break and watching a movie or even having a drink or whatever it is once in a while that helps you sort of disconnect and soften out of the intensity of reality, or reading a book or whatever it is. But if you find yourself doing that more and more and more as time goes on, there's a sign that there's something you are resisting or avoiding. So I can't make this up, but the card that I pulled for our group today is the Scorpion card from the Untamed Elemental deck. And so it's so funny because we were talking about how the remedy or the release point for the apex of the T-square is always the opposite, which is 23 degrees Scorpio. And we pulled the Scorpio card for the messaging that we all need today. And it's all about passion. Priestess of harsh climes and mysteries of the night, Scorpion is an astrological jewel and enchantress. Her biological brilliance is draped in self-reliance and dangerous protective forces. As a potent guardian of the mythical and unordinary, she expresses ardor for life as an enthusiastic lover, protective mother, and skilled hunter. By keeping the balance between solitude and lustiness, the sting of desire becomes eternally irresistible. Her passion transcends the sexual and enters the realm of holy creation. Scorpion medicine arrives when you need to recommit to your passion for earthly life. The soul evolves through the bodily experiences, which are adorned by many wholesome pleasures. It's time to embrace them. With her deadly defenses, Scorpion is not encumbered by a fear of passion. In fact, it is her attraction to intensity that keeps her safe. Call upon Scorpion when your own passion feels pale, and allow her to guide you through the night toward the dawning fresh enthusiasm for your human experience. When it's balanced, you have passion for life. When it's imbalanced, you might feel timid or lackluster. To bring into balance, rekindle the meditative flames of your ancestral relationships and ask the ones who came before you for instruction, protection, and supervision. As a Scorpio rising, I can approve this message. Depth holds more space for light. And when we can go deeper into what lights us up, we're able to embody more light and more joy and more clarity. So thank you so much for being here. As always, I hope this episode was helpful. I think it's really a pivotal point as we, get more in alignment with this Aquarian energy and we enter into the eclipse portal. We start to really create framework for what this next year has to hold for us, especially the last half of 2025. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, as always, for sharing the episodes on social, sharing with friends and family. It means the world. Getting messages every week, it's just, it means so much, and it really keeps me going. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I so appreciate you. If you have any topics you would like me to cover or anything that you have questions about, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to, or email me. I'm happy to answer them in the episodes. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful week and happy full moon.